Welcome everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce a good friend of mine, Bob Bryers. He is the current president of the East York Rotary Club. I got that right. I usually do some blend of our two clubs. A few years ago, he and his wife, Jean, went to Kenya, and I've heard his presentation. And it's a little bit self-serving that I've invited him because it was my intention at the end of March to be going to Kenya for a milestone birthday with some friends, but that will be postponed likely till next year. So I thought, well, let's all go on a virtual tour to Kenya with Bob. And Bob, if you can share your insights and your everything you saw.
Oh,
wow.
God.
Okay.
Talk about a close-up.
Alrighty. Well, there are no direct flights from Toronto to Nairobi, Kenya, so we have to take a stop into a European major city and then move on. So our trip consisted of about 17 or 18 hours from Toronto to Nairobi. We got in there late in the evening, settled into the hotel in time to have a light snack, and so as I say, we got into the hotel, up to the rooftop lounge. It gave a beautiful view of the city. I don't have a picture of that, maybe because there was a champagne and wine bar there with over 1,100 wines from around the world. Now, we didn't get a chance to try them all, but we did attempt it. Fortunately, the next day was not an early morning start, and so we were okay in trying a few wines. But the first day in Nairobi, we went to the David Sheldrick Elephant Orphanage. And David Sheldrick stands out even today as one of Africa's most famous and proficient pioneer national park wardens. His wife, Daphne, was the first person in the world to successfully hand rear newborn, fully milk-dependent African orphans. And these elephants are orphaned primarily because of poachers looking for ivory, and sometimes because they get separated from their family herd. But if they are left alone, they will most likely die. It is the protection of the family that allows the babies to grow into adults. These elephants in the orphanage are taken for a walk every day. It allows them to get exposed to the wilderness, where they'll be released later on in another elephant family herd. As the elephants start to return and realize that they're going back to their main site, some of them do get a little bit more excited because they know that when they get back to the orphanage, they're going to get fed. And for at least the first year and possibly the first 2 years, the elephants are bottle fed. And then by the second year, they're starting to eat the leaves and trees that they're going to be eating when they get out into the wilderness. Karu is an elephant that Jean and I adopted. We didn't totally adopt it because taking all expenses into consideration, it costs about $30,000 a year to keep an elephant. So we, along with several other people, are contributing to Karu's cost. Karu this is him at 1 year old. At 1 month old, he had fallen into a well, and fortunately was rescued, and now after 7 years is ready to get back into the wilderness with a new elephant tribe. This is a younger elephant, but it does show that the kind of enclosure that they're contained in. And you see up here in the right-hand corner a bed. The elephants do not naturally take to that bottle feeding, but they are elephants need to have faith in someone, and it takes a while for their handler sleeping in a bed like this and being with the elephant 24/7, it takes a while for that elephant to be comfortable enough with the handler to actually start taking the formula that's going to keep them alive.
Gosh.
The orphanage also takes on rhinos, and this fella is, I believe, about 7 or 8 years old at this stage. Unfortunately, when he was found less than a year old, he realized that he was blind. And so the orphanage has taken on this rhino. It's quite a commitment because rhinos live anywhere from 30 to 50 years, and they're not going to be able to put the rhino back into the wilderness. So he will spend his life at the orphanage. And so I say quite a commitment from them to do that. Our next day we headed to Wilson Airport. This is the airport for internal travel in Kenya. And you can see the size of the planes. Initially, Gene was quite concerned with getting on a smaller plane until we actually got up in the air and could really appreciate the wonderful view. The planes don't go over 5,000 feet, and so you get quite a view. I was fortunate enough to get a seat right behind the pilot in most of our flights, so got a view out the front window as well as the side windows. And this is a typical landing strip in Kenya. At this point, we're on our way to Nanyuki, which is right on the equator. And heading from the airport to Old Pacheta Conservancy. And this is a conservancy, 364 square kilometers, a wildlife reserve. It's situated at the foothills of Mount Kenya, has over 10,000 large mammals, and is actually the only park where the big five, that's elephants, rhinos, lions, leopards, and Cape buffalo, where the big five and chimpanzees can be seen together. Now, on our trip from the airport to the actual camp, we encountered this fellow, and it's one of the few times that we saw an elephant alone, because most of the time they are with a herd. But as you can see, the right hind leg of this guy is disformed, and the guides suspect that likely sometime before he was a year old, that leg got broken, and it just never healed, but the elephant carries on. We've arrived at the camp. This is the main tent of the camp, the first camp that we stayed at. We stayed at 3 different camps for 3 nights each. This first one is the main lodge, and we ate our meals inside. You can see some of the guests who overstayed their visit there as to what they do with them. The camp has 6 tents. This is one of them. It has a nice little porch to sit on, a couple of beds in each tent. There's solar power lighting. There's a shower in each of the units. Now, when I say there's a shower, at this camp, they did not have pressurized water. So when you wanted to have a shower, and it was usually done at night because the morning was too rushed, but you would set a time where they would bring 2 buckets, actually canvas buckets of water, one cool, one hot, hook them up, and it was gravity where the water came down. So you turn on the shower, get wet, turn the shower off, soap up and clean, turn the water on, rinse off, turn the water off, and get out so someone else could get in. It was quite an experience. It made me realize just how good we have it here, and also how much waste we do with our water here in Canada. This is the table where we had our lunch, and our first day at the camp, once we got settled in, we did have lunch here. Then we had a chance to spend an hour or so at our tent. I am standing just maybe 20 meters at the most, 15 or 20 meters off of the that porch or that landing, and this is what we got to see. There's a water hole that many different animals came to drink and to bathe. and it was quite a sight, literally a stone's throw away from us. But that day, we also were going to go on our first game drive, and it was called a sunset game drive. Leave at about 4:30 in the afternoon. This is the vehicle that we were going into. It was great because this particular tour, in the vehicle at any one time, there was the guide and the driver. Jean and I, most times it was just the four of us. Sometimes there was another couple. At the most, there were 6 of us along with the guide and the driver. So it was quite an intimate journey. Now, after seeing many animals, they say we leave at 4:30. So now we're looking at about 6 o'clock, and we stop. They pull out a table and set up a little bar for a cocktail and appetizers. There's beer and wine, soft drinks, and gin and tonic. Gin and tonic is the drink of Kenya. Anytime we wanted alcohol, it was going to be gin and tonic. And another picture of a similar stop for cocktail hour on our sunset game drive. But before this, this is what we're actually there to see, is the sunsets. And the sunsets in Kenya are absolutely beautiful. But before we got there, before we got to have our cocktails, we saw several different animals, from the Cape buffalo, obviously the lions, the elephants. They were amazing. Almost always they were in groups of anywhere from 6 to 16. A not so friendly spotted hyena, or sometimes called laughing hyena because of the sound that they make. Actually a very fierce animal, pound for pound, one of the fiercest animals in Kenya. Looks like a dog, but is actually closer to the cat family. The majestic giraffe. Jean fell in love with the giraffes in Kenya, and they are quite an amazing animal. The youngster looking at us, you can almost see on his face, he's looking at us saying, "What are you doing in my house?" But, there's several different types of antelopes in Kenya. These are called topi, T-O-P-I, distinguished by the brown markings on their hind legs. They say it's a sunset game drive, and so after the sun goes down and it's dark, then we start heading back to the campsite. But on the way, we are looking for animals who are now out looking for their dinner. January 12th, we were at that campsite, and that was our wedding anniversary, our 25th wedding anniversary, and Crystal had made sure that the folks at the camp knew it was, and so they made a special cake for us. The serving staff put on a little bit of entertainment, some dancing and songs, and of course a little bit of champagne to celebrate, but not too much champagne because the next morning we were up very early. For the morning drives, they would be waking us up at 5:30, would present us with a prearranged continental breakfast that we chose, coffee, tea, juice, muffins, etc. But at 6 o'clock, you're expected to be at the Jeep to start the drive. That's why you'd shower the night before. There wasn't time in the morning. But this is the sun rising over Mount Kenya as we head out for a game drive where we're seeing just all kinds of different animals. But by about, say 8 o'clock or 8:30, you're starting to get hungry and it's time for breakfast. And so we would stop in an appropriate place. They'd bring out the table and the chairs and serve a nice breakfast meal, hot and cold. Underneath this tin foil is eggs and bacon, sausage. We got beans and pancakes and all kinds of fruit. So it was a real surprise the first time, and then we look forward to it each day thereafter. This is another day where they're setting up for that breakfast, obviously a little bit warmer this morning by the attire for the guide and the driver. But we were at the Perini Reno camp, and our key thing was to go and see rhinos. And this is, don't worry about the color, this is a white rhino. Pardon me, this is the black rhinos that we're seeing here first. The names of the rhinos kind of got mixed up in the translation. This is called a white rhino. Well, you'll see that the snouts of the white rhino are quite wide. In Afrikaans, there's a word W-E-I-T, weight, and that means wide. But that weight of Afrikaans got translated into English into being white. And so the rhinos with the wide snout are referred to as the white rhinos. And with the rounded snout, they are the black rhinos. And they're called black rhinos to distinguish them from the white, wide-nosed rhino. And even though the natural color of the black rhino is more gray, they at times do look black because they like to wallow in the mud, and the local mud is quite dark in color, and so many times they do look black. Now, unfortunately, the rhinos are an endangered species, and primarily because of this horn, and because there are some cultures who feel that it has magical and or medical capabilities, which it does not, but it is killing off a lot of the rhinos because of it. So that was the black rhino, and this is the wide or white rhino. These fellas gave us a fantastic journey one afternoon, spent time walking around the area of the camp, and they chatted to us about themselves and their experiences, did a dance for us. These guys, they should all be on basketball teams. The height that they can jump, the spring in their legs, I think they would all make any of the NBA teams. They're really quite amazing. We're now on our way back to the airport to move on to our second camp. And again, we encountered our friend with the broken leg. Also some giraffes along the way. Birds were very plentiful as well. This is one of many creeks or rivers that we had to pass over. And this is typical of them. And actually, this is typical of where the villagers would bathe, wash their clothes, actually take that water for drinking. Now, they did boil the water before using it, but the water is used for many purposes. Although it looks muddy and murky, it's just because of the muddy bottom. And we did have to cross several of these ditches. The next picture coming up is my favorite of the whole trip, because this was the scene as we're coming down in the Jeep, and we turned right, and this is what we encountered. These animals living in harmony, it was breathtaking. And although this looks like a staged photo from a Disney Hollywood movie, this is actually what we saw. And friendly little turtle as well. We had to make our own paths. There's very few paved roads in Kenya, especially where the animals are.
Wow.
Zebras are curious of us as we were of them, as were the giraffes. This is the main lounge of the second campsite that we were at. That was in the Masai Mara, and we had our meals at the table and behind here. This is our tent that we stayed in, very much like the tent that I showed you at the first campsite. This is the house of one of the villagers, and come back to that in just a moment. This is one of the villagers standing in the corral. In Kenya, you do not judge the wealth of a man by the amount of money in his bank account. It's by the number of cows that he owns, and this fellow did own several. they were out at pasture at this point, but you can see the corral, and this also shows some of the tree branches that are used as fencing for the corral. Jean got her own private tour by one of the guides throughout the village. But getting back to the house, these homes are made by the women of the village, and they make the entrance so that they can walk through it. I'm under 6 feet tall, and I had to duck significantly to get into the house, as do most of the men in the village. The homes are made from branches of trees, and it's covered by a combination of mud and dung. Excuse me. So, but I say it is the ladies who make the accommodations. It's very sparse. Inside, there's beds to lie on. There's a pit to burn wood for cooking their meals. Excuse me, and that's about it. The ladies are very welcoming and very joyful, and each time someone comes to visit, they will have a welcoming song and dance, and they invited Jean to join them so that she could learn their dance as well. They also have a bit of a bazaar or market so that you can buy some of their items. Sometimes they're wanting to negotiate price, and sometimes they're very firm on their prices. These are some of the things we bought. We put them into a shadow box frame. It's hanging on the wall, so just had to take a picture of it. There was very little negotiation available because the very intricate beadwork, because of the lighting, all of these silvers should be showing up. At the bottom, this gavel-like instrument, also very fine beadwork on it, and the intricacy of the beadwork usually indicated the status of the individual in the village. This gavel is gavel-like instrument. Men carried it all the time. Whenever they were having a meeting, they would hold this up above their head to indicate that they wanted to speak, and would continue holding it until they were finished. It also could be used as a weapon in the case of an attack from an animal or an attack from another villager, I guess, but I don't think they used it too often in that context. After leaving the village, it's on to see some more animals who, again, are as curious about us as we were about them. The trees in Kenya were fantastic, even the ones that had the buzzards on them. Sometimes we came across real life in our journey. This is from one of our morning game drives. It's likely about 7:30 in the morning at this point, and this is a kill from just a few hours previous. And after they have eaten, the lions are looking for some place to relax and sleep. This is a jackal, and in the wilderness there's a hierarchy. And first, it's the lions that will feed off of a kill. Then the hyenas come in, and then it's the jackals, and then it's the birds. But these little jackals are impatient and are quite often trying to cut the queue, so to speak. However, there is no waste in the wilderness, and after the lions, hyenas, the jackals, and the birds have all had their chance, and there is no waste left. As I say, with the jackals, they can be quite annoying at times, and even the king of the jungle sometimes has to move his breakfast to a place that's not going to be quite as annoying by those jackals. And when he's finished, he's going to have a little snooze as well. Excuse me. Lions sleep about, or at least relax, about 20 hours a day. And then for 4 hours a day, they're out hunting, and that's usually at night. This guy is not roaring. You saw him at the beginning. This is just a big yawn. This is part of that tribe that work together. Now, at some point in your life, you likely have asked, why do giraffes have such long legs and long necks? And it's because the tenderest leaves and the nicest tasting fruit is at the top of the trees. And these are how the giraffes feed, and when they're finished, they move on to another tree to see about some more tender leaves. These are elands. This is the largest antelope in Kenya. They're not quite as big as a moose, but they are quite large. A young impala. Zebras are very seldom seen just one at a time. They're usually in a herd, but as a minimum, there would be a pair. And whether it's a herd or just the two of them, they will always be standing like this so that they can see 360 degrees if there happens to be any predators who are trying to creep up on them. As we travel, there was never a shortage of ostriches to see. This is the Cape buffalo. They look most of the time very calm and lazy. However, if they get annoyed, they are extremely fierce and unforgiving and unstopping in their attack when they feel threatened. Always with the Cape buffalo, you'll see these white birds. They work together. Most of the times the birds are on the back of the buffalo because they're eating the insects that are on the buffalo. And so they work very well in harmony. Again, that the zebras are curious. This little guy was very curious. This is a baby hyena, and he would move a few feet towards the Jeep, stop and look at us, move a little bit closer, then a little bit closer. And again, I say he was curious as we were. There's order in the wilderness. The sign says, notice this bridge is rated for a maximum of 11 tons. Elephants are therefore requested to cross 2 at a time only. And so the elephants only cross 2 at a time. As I say, most of the time in seeing the elephants, they were in groups. And I think the most we saw counted at one time where there's 20 in one particular herd. These two guys are playing. They do fight, and they fight to determine who is going to be the male dominant leader of the herd. But in this particular instance, they were just playing. I related to this fella, old, wrinkled, tired, but still carrying on. I mentioned about the sunset cruises where we left late afternoon and saw some animals and stopped to have a cocktail. There was one day when we stopped the Jeep about to get out, and then as we look around, we noticed that there are 15 lions all around us, not counting this little guy. And so although the lions were quite calm, we did not feel threatened, although they did get kind of close at times, we decided that it was not likely the best idea to get out of the Jeep for our cocktail and hors d'oeuvres, and so had that inside the Jeep. Now, it took me half an hour to get these guys to pose properly. No, obviously, just kidding. Every once in a while, you get a chance for a great picture. Again, one that looks like Disney had set it up, but no, that's not the case. This is a sad situation. This is a baby giraffe, seems to have got its neck caught in the branches of the tree and was attacked. We suspect possibly a jackal or a hyena. If it had been a lion, the body would have been likely torn apart. But we went back to the same spot the next day, and we saw this. This is giraffes, and they are filing past that young giraffe. One at a time, they're going to where that young giraffe was, stop for a second or two, and then move on. The same kind of scene that you would see with humans at a funeral home here in Toronto. It was actually quite moving. And our young friend again, wondering what the heck we're doing there. This day was Hippo Day, and we were fortunate. We found a river that had many different hippos in it. Hippos like water. In fact, they spend more time in water than on land. But every once in a while, you can find one out on the land. They look big, bulky, and slow, but they can move at 20 miles an hour on the land, and they're very agile in the water. And they actually can look and be very fierce. Hippos kill more people in Africa each year than any other animal. It's usually by accident, people swimming where the hippos are, or hippos accidentally tipping over a boat as they surface, but they can be very fierce, especially with 20-inch teeth as they do have. These guys were across the river. We decided not to go and visit them directly, but to take a picture. We had a chance to go on a hot air balloon and jumped at that opportunity. We had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to 2-hour drive to where the balloon was. They filled it up with air, and then we had some beautiful sights. I know this is on the Masai Mara Savannah, and just some fantastic views. We actually got quite low at times to see the Cape Buffalo, but then we would rise up again to get another fantastic view. This is, we have landed, the pilot in the middle landed us safely, and what he was taking us to was our breakfast. Waiting for us was the breakfast table. The buffet, hot and cold buffet, was waiting for us, again with eggs, bacon, sausage, pancakes, everything that you would expect in a full breakfast buffet. But if you're going to have something to eat, you may have to relieve yourself. And this was the loo with a view. And it was actually quite a nice view. But protocol necessitated that you make a noise as you were walking to that loo so you did not startle someone, because there's no door on the other side. After breakfast, we again continued our game drive, and we encountered this female cheetah with her kittens. They look cute enough to cuddle, but not too wise to do so, especially with the mother there. As you can tell, some of these pictures are with the telephoto lens. This one is not. You can see the tire of the Jeep up in the top right-hand corner. I was sitting right here. I actually started to reach out to touch the cheetah. She was that close. And then I realized that I better be careful or I might become lunch. Pulled my hand back. But the cheetah sat down beside the Jeep watching her kittens. And then we moved along and found another cheetah that belonged to this larger family. Excuse me. It's very hot all the time in Kenya. And what better way for a Cape buffalo to cool off than a wonderful big mud puddle? This is a leopard, and this is how during the day you normally can see a leopard. If you can see them at all, they are quite elusive. Leopards rest during the day, usually sleeping on a branch of a tree, and then they are out prowling at night. However, every once in a while you luck out and you're able to see a leopard on the ground. It's not too often you're able to get a shot like this. We're lucky. Beautiful birds in throughout Kenya. I'm not a birder, so I didn't take a whole lot of pictures of birds, but they were quite amazing. This was the one time that we saw a wildebeest that was by itself. Normally, they're in herds along with zebras and giraffes. Some scavengers that were finishing off the final of an animal that had been hurt. another creek that we had to cross over. Sometimes those creeks became our roadway to get to where we wanted to go. Going down some relatively steep hills at one point, actually thought I was on a roller coaster type ride at a carnival, but it was a whole lot of fun overall. We're at the airport here now, about to get onto the plane again to go to our third and final camp. And this was the most luxurious of the 3 camps, a big king size bed, wonderful washroom. This had pressurized water, so we could take a shower whenever we wanted without having to arrange for it. A lovely lounge to relax, read a book or whatever, have a drink. Covered patio outside, and to the left there was a water hole, and there was always animals drinking, as I showed at the beginning. This is Chulu Hills. At the third campsite, we did not see as many animals as at the first 2. However, did see some beautiful scenery and had a fantastic walk in the forest, about 2 hours with the guides, and talking with them and them telling us a little bit about what we were seeing. It was the most jungle-like aspect of our trip, because most of it was on the plains and savannas. Fantastic rock formations. It was about 100 feet high. I just was quite attracted to it. Went to another village. This one was a little bit nicer than the first village we went to. And also the ladies welcomed us with their song and dance. This village had a school, and we found out that we were going to be going to a school. We wanted to take something to give to the school. We were able to buy a blackboard for it, but we wanted to give something that in our visit. In those small planes for the interior of Kenya, they have a very strict limit on your luggage, 32 pounds, and it's strictly enforced, maximum 32 pounds. So it's hard to take anything of any meaning. So what we decided is that we'd fill up our suitcases, all the little spaces, with pencils and pens. And this is just some of the pencils and pens that we gave to the school mistress. The kids lining up to go into class, all of them in uniform. And we were able to go into one of the classes and chat with the students. They didn't mind too much. We interrupted an algebra class that they weren't too upset, and wanted to chat with us. Now, when it was actually quite surprised, because one of the fellows asked me how old I was, and when I told him at the time I was 70 years old, he looked at me and great surprise that somebody that old could still stand up and walk. But, this is a doctor standing in front of his hospital, and he was smiling because we had stuck in between the pencils and the clothes hundreds and hundreds of bandages, and to be able to give to him. This is a plane that's landing to take us to Nairobi. We're at the end of our trip, and so we're having to say goodbye to all of these wonderful animals and creatures that allowed us to infiltrate their homeland without attacking us or eating us. And so as we get to the end of our visit, well,
Beautiful.
These are antelopes. There's one male antelope here you can see with the horns on the left, 20 females. It is quite a harem that the antelope have. This is again my favorite picture of the trip. But as the sun sets in Kenya and we have to say goodbye to all of our friends, I will also say goodbye to you and thank you for the opportunity. The nice thing about this is that it also allowed me to refresh all the memories that I had.
Nice.
Can I get Jim Houghton to thank our speaker?
Bob, on behalf of Toronto East, I want to thank you for a fascinating presentation. Great pictures and narrative. Certainly a bucket list trip. Just a great presentation. Thanks again.
Okay, very welcome. Thank you.
Bob, did you run into any big snakes over there?
Well, actually, we're not big snakes. We ran into a black mamba, which is actually only about maybe 6 or 7 feet long. But the black mamba, its name is because the inside of its mouth is all black. It's actually silver in color. It's one of the most deadliest snakes in the world. You get bit by it, and you've likely got less than an hour. If you don't get care, you're going to be dead. But that was the only actual snake that we saw.
Okay.
If you want to stay on and ask Bob some questions, you're welcome to. But this wraps up our initial meeting, and thank everybody for attending today, and see you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, does anyone have questions for Bob?
Well, I had one comment that I wanted to make for those who are still on, if you're interested. At the Elephant Orphanage, showed the sign with Koru, K-A-U-R-O, the elephant that had fallen into the well. If you're wanting to find out more about elephant orphanages, and specifically about Koru, go on to Google, just put in K-A-U-R-O, and it will pop up. There's a film there about the rescue of that elephant, and about the Sheldrick Orphanage. There's also right now on Netflix a film called Naledi, N-A-L-E-D-I, a baby elephant tale, again talking about orphanages and what they're doing and how they are able to rescue the elephants. So a couple of things there if you're more interested in the elephants. I'm open to any questions.
I have a question. Well, 2 questions. My name is Benito, and I wonder if you have Kenya has problems with poachers. They are dangerous with the community or with the tourist people. And the second question is approximately how much cost to go there, like all these trips.
As far as poachers are concerned, the poachers don't present a danger at all to any of the tourists, and I don't think to any of the local people. In fact, more and more, the poachers are most dangerous to themselves. The reserves are being policed to a greater extent every year. More and more poachers are being caught, but as far as tourists are concerned, there's no danger. Now, were you asking me how much a trip like this costs?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It depends on what type of trip that you're doing. We took one that was more personalized. As I say, most of the time it was just Jean and I along with a guide and driver. You can go on to trips where you're going to be in with maybe 30 other people. Obviously, that's going to be a little less cost. I'm not sure exactly what it all turned out to, but ours was somewhere between 25 and 30.
Okay, thank you. Very nice pictures. Lovely.
I have a question as well. What medical preparation did you have to, like, did you have to take anti-malaria drugs or another?
I think there was 10 different shots. Yeah. Malaria, yellow fever is the big one. But yes, in fact, it went to a special travel clinic because the normal family physician doesn't have those on hand. But I had to make an appointment at a travel clinic to get the shots. I think we went back 3 times to finally get all of the shots that were needed. And the shots last for 10 years. So we just got, by the time this COVID thing gets over, we're only going to have 2 or 3 years to go back and have the shots still good.
Did you have any sickness or problems like with food or anything while you were there? Or?
Not at all. No, it was health-wise, it was just a fantastic trip. Yeah.
It looked very interesting pictures. Very beautiful.
Bob
Anyone
Benito.
else? Questions?
Yeah, Bob Benito sort of alluded to it, but and maybe in your answer, but so it sounds as though they are making some headway against the poachers, or are the animals still losing ground?
I can't answer that specifically because I don't know. I do know that there's less and less animals that are being killed as far as, say, the numbers per year. because of the policing of the poachers. As to whether there is still a deterioration of the total number of animals, births and deaths, I'm not sure. But it definitely is less today than what it was even 5 years ago.
So I would like to add, just to add a comment that the second reserve that you went to,
Yes.
So one of our members and his wife is actually just outside of there now.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
So Jeff and
You'll
Rita
enjoy it. I would like to go back, not necessarily to Kenya, but to the Serengeti and see the migration. When you think about, I think it's what, a million wildebeest migrating, and just the sound of their hooves on the ground when you're in the area, as well as being able to view it. It's an experience that I look forward to.
Our member, Jeff Raymond and his wife Rita, they run a charity there. I think it involves using sheep's dung goat's dung for manure, and they led to a business for the locals that help them get out of poverty. So they're now working with the charity. I believe that charity, right, Virginia?
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I was just mentioning dung is used quite extensively in Kenya. As I say, the homes are it's mud and dung that is on the outside of the houses. And if you happen to be living in an area where there is a lot of rhinos, you have a lot of access to it. A rhino dumps about 50 pounds a day.
Wow.
Lots of housing material. All right. Well, thank you for hanging on and listening. And Bob, thanks so much. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Benito, yeah. Yay.
Okay. But again, I thank you, because what it forced me to do is to go back and remember a whole lot of wonderful things. So
You did a great job. I appreciate it, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.